Okay, we have a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm excited to welcome all of you to our event today, our CRM Contender Series, focused on Salesforce versus Sugar Cell, and is Sugar right for you? Before we jump in and I introduce you to today's speakers, I do want to cover a few housekeeping items. This will be a 60-minute presentation, and we will have a more formal audience Q&A at the end. But if at any point during the conversation you have questions, drop them right into that question box. I'll be monitoring that so I can interject and get questions answered as they come up. And then we are recording this session, and we will be sending a copy of both the deck and the recording of the webinar in a follow-up email. You'll likely see that in your inbox tomorrow morning. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the first speaker, my colleague Garrett Hogan, to go ahead and introduce yourself, Garrett, and talk a little bit about BrainCell.
Wonderful. And Sarah, you can hear me okay?
I sure can.
It is great to be on the call today with Dennis and you, Sarah. Thanks for setting this up. My name is Garrett Hogan. I'm the Vice President of Customer Experience here at BrainCell. I've been talking about CRM systems for about 20 years and love talking about the differences in the marketplace and where one CRM could potentially give more value based on your people and your processes. And that's what BrainCell focuses on, right? We're a growth enablement company. We're here to understand your business challenges behind technology, find those right technology solutions so that you can grow and hit those 3-year and 5-year KPIs. So a little long-winded on that one, Sarah, but it's great to be on the call.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Garrett. And now I will turn it over to you, Dennis, to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Sugar.
Absolutely. So Dennis Smith, VP of Sales North America for Sugar CRM. I come to Sugar by way of acquisition. So I was a Sugar partner for about 10 years prior to Sugar acquiring our company. Gives us a pretty interesting perspective. Certainly, BrainCell being a frenemy of ours, W, for quite some time. So a little difference to be in the same pew together today, but happy to be here. From its core, working with Sugar for the past, again, 10 years, lots of changes, both in the marketplace from competitor standpoint, but also on our own product line. And I'm really happy to be here today to show you kind of where we're different, how we're different, and how we help companies actually adopt the solutions that they purchase. So I appreciate you guys inviting me.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here, Dennis. And so just quickly, so you have expectations in terms of what we plan to cover today, we're going to start off with just laying the foundation. So talking about the state of CRM today, when you're looking at different solution, what are the key areas you should consider? Then we'll take a deeper dive into a side-by-side comparison of both Sugar Cell and Salesforce. And then we'll take a closer look and do an actual live demo of the technology and then move into that more formal Q&A. But before I turn it over to Garrett to start talking about the state of CRM, we do have a couple of polls just to better understand those of you who have joined us today. So the first poll question that we have is around which CRM are you currently using? So are there folks on the line that are currently using Salesforce? You may be utilizing Sugar, HubSpot, maybe there's one not listed, or you're not utilizing any CRM currently today. So I'm just gonna keep it open for a couple more seconds to give people a chance to vote. Okay, and I'm gonna share the results. So it looks like we have half the audience is utilizing Sugar. We have 22% utilizing Salesforce, a handful, it's not listed here, they're utilizing something else, and some that are not using
I'm
anything.
surprised to see no HubSpot. Lots of noise from them of late.
Yeah. So for those of you who are utilizing CRM, tell us about what is your relationship? So are you happily married, in it for the long haul? You've had some rocky moments with it, but you're trying to get back on track. You try to avoid the headache of interacting with it. Let's just say you're exploring other options. And relationship, what relationship?
Let's hopefully 50% say happily married.
Okay, and I'll give it a couple more seconds to give people a chance. Then we'll close it. And let me share the results. So it looks like you got your wish, Dennis.
There
50%
you
are
go.
happily married, 20% exploring options, and 30% relationship. What relationship? Okay, so that's good for this conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Garrett, to take us through the market today for CRM.
Yeah, let's talk about the CRM marketplace to get started here today. The CRM marketplace is absolutely huge. About 90% of all companies currently have adopted a CRM and are using it in some type of capacity. The problem with the crowded marketplace like this is it makes your buying decision really difficult, right? The idea of just choosing the most popular software platform because it's the most known necessarily is not the right solution. So you got to think about statistics from G2 Crowd, and for example, like with 600 CRM systems out in the marketplace, 19% have a customer satisfaction above 3 stars, right? They may be good for certain use cases, but they're not fitting your use case. So it's important to kind of level set and understand that as you start to go into a CRM buying process, because Sarah, if you want to go to the next slide here. The value of your CRM should really be all about what you're trying to achieve with technology, right? What's your return on investment, right? Can you lower your customer churn, right? Can you improve productivity? Can you give the team a software platform that will improve their selling and they'll have smarter selling? Can you improve the customer experience, right? We all know that if you don't have 90% customer approval, you're losing business, right? And is the data accessible to you and your executive team, right? So some very high level points to start thinking about when you're starting to look into buying a CRM. Sarah, you want to go?
One good point there also, Garrett, is, and this is a fine slide to talk about it on, but from what is that platform doing for your users, as opposed to what are your users have to do on that platform? Adding another technology layer to a sales rep or a customer service agent, unless that is of value to them, unless it's helping them do their job, it's just yet another pivot. It's another screen. It's another thing that they have to do. And I think all too often companies fall in love with a fancy widget, maybe a logo, maybe an industry leader, in acquiring something that actually doesn't help. It's just another piece. And so we'll talk a little bit about that more later on in the seminar.
And I think if you Googled it right now, there's probably 1,500 white papers on why a CRM project could fail. And you'll find that 90% of that is user adoption. It's too complex. The users don't like to use it. It's clunky. All of these factors, and without the users using it, you don't get the data. And what are you trying to use a CRM to do? You're trying to get the CRM to tell you a story about your business, about where you should be steering the ship. It's all about user adoption at the end of the day. Yeah. So key areas, obviously know the state of your business, right? Before you get into any of these discussions with CRM vendors, establish a budget. Identify what you're trying to achieve from the CRM. What data are you trying to capture so you can really understand what a day in the life looks like when you're using that CRM system. Does it even have the capabilities to capture that data, and what would that look like? All the way down to relationships, right? I always say in the CRM marketplace, it's not that there's necessarily bad CRMs. There are, but there's light, there's medium, there's enterprise CRMs, and you have to look at what you're trying to achieve with the technology and say, where do I fit when I'm buying a CRM? I need an enterprise class, I need a mid-market, I need a very light CRM just to track a pipeline or something like that. Start having those questions now. And then as you dig a little deeper, you always have to look to your current IT architecture, right? Are you looking for something cloud-based? Most of them are. Are you looking for something unique and more on-premise? Well, you've got to head in that direction to investigate those tools as well.
I think to that same line, often when we evaluate different people coming to us, usually it's one or two spots. They're either coming from an existing platform that they're unsatisfied with for whatever reason, be it financial or functionality, or they're coming from nothing. We often say that Excel is our largest competitor, that it exists in almost every organization that we have influence with. And to be able to have a run, crawl, walk mentality, or should I say crawl, walk, run, Often people come to us and say, we're using nothing today. We have Excel and we pass it around the office at the end of the month to update some type of a pipeline. But when we go live on CRM, we want to integrate with our ERP. We have to have some type of sales planning software installed. We need to be integrated with our mobile website designer, our marketing automation plan, of which we have none of today. And we're going to do all of that as one initial lift and one initial project. And again, as we talk about adoption and getting that return, you really need to specify what is the pain that your users have. Like, what is it that we're trying to solve for? And set up a roadmap or a plan over several months or quarters or even years where you're digesting technology at the different interval. Often when we find companies trying to lift several things at the same time, those projects tend to slow down to a point where seeing that return on the investment is difficult. And at the end, you have a bloated solution, again, that your users aren't ready to use. So keeping in mind kind of the easy button mentality of, we have this problem, let's solve this problem, and not taking off more than you can chew initially, most important to a successful project.
Yep. Yeah. Organize it into phases and sprints and have a clear vision. To Dennis's point, when you get on that road and you start walking down that road, you know exactly where you're going to end up. Okay, let's dive into the CRM contenders for today's call. We're going to focus on SugarCell and its similarities and differences with Salesforce. If you look at the features overview here, you'll notice that as far as customer support, Salesforce and Sugar do it very well. Though you've got to watch for some hidden charges with some of these CRM contracts. For example, Salesforce's phone support does add some additional charges to your annual budget. Do you want on-premise versus cloud, right? Well, Sugar's going to handle that nicer than Salesforce will. They do have private cloud options though. And then of course, data storage. What are we trying to store inside the system? How big is that system going to be? If you're doing an ERP integration, for example, to say like an Epicor or an Inflor product or something like that, and you're looking to really push all that data back into your CRM to analyze it and report on it, to Dennis's case, first of all, we want to understand why. And second of all, you do have to look at your data storage allocations. Are there going to be unexpected budget changes because we've grown our CRM database to exceed the data storage limits, if you will? When it comes to deploying, you can look to partners, you can look to the vendor itself. You can also look to standing up a CRM system on your own. And when you think about standing up your CRM system on your own, you got to look to the talent, right? Are they familiar with Salesforce's Apex, which is proprietary? Are they familiar with something like PHP? And what are the requirements where they may need to know some PHP to actually get the system up and running? Because most of these systems are point-and-click configuration. It's just really what are we most comfortable with in getting this system stood up to fit our exact needs, because that's what they're designed to do. And also, of course, when you're looking at your team, how many users do you have? Some CRMs do have minimums. Salesforce is a 1-seat minimum. Sugar has a minimum of 3. So Sarah, you want to move to the next slide? Okay, and then of course now we start talking about the email integration, and you can see here from these screenshots, we're going to dive in a bit deeper into these screenshots, a little bit more on the demo. I find that if you're new to a CRM system, you want the deepest CRM integration into your Outlook or Gmail account that's possible. And you'll find that as Dennis starts showing Sugar CRM, you can basically work within your CRM directly from within Outlook or Gmail. It's a really nice crutch to get your users accustomed to using a CRM system, right? And success is everything. User adoption is everything. So the ability to create contacts and new leads from my inbox, the ability to schedule a meeting or call, the ability to still schedule a meeting on my Outlook calendar where I'm happy, knowing that the data is going to sync to my CRM and I'm going to be able to analyze it from the CRM side, are real winners when you're looking at email integration. Sarah, next slide. And then, of course, also think about mobility, right? I'm talking to a customer right now that spends 4 days a week on the road, 1 day back at the office. And so mobile was very important to them. So you've got to be able to break down that mobile technology. Does it have capabilities like offline, where they're standing in the middle of the field and they're not near a cell tower, they still have access to their data? Are little components like that, that's when the CRM marketplace starts to differentiate themselves. If that's the case, and they're going into steel buildings and they're going to lose access to AT&T, offline may be a huge checkbox in your selection criteria. You'll find that a lot of CRMs are just doing it live. They're not going to have that offline capability, and that's going to be a problem with moving forward with their solution.
The other thing that's important about mobile, Garrett, is just the ability to own the UI and to own the configuration of it. And I think
yes.
from an extensibility, being able to do things like put record buttons on a mobile form for quick actions where you have lack of real estate, things like creating calls and contacts without having to do 4 or 5 clicks on a mobile device, just making it nice and easy. And also on the Sugar side, we offer the software development kit. So should you want to extend that mobile solution for any internal needs, you have direct access to that code set of Sugar Mobile. So a really strong win for us here. When we demo head-to-head against Salesforce, mobile is usually a resounding win for us.
Well, you know what people love the most about the mobile app with Sugar is to talk to text as well. So not only is it completely configurable and you can make the look and feel anything that you need it to look like, showing the user the ability to sit in their car and just talk in meeting notes as their car's warming up in the middle of January and they're about to go to their next meeting, and not doing that at 6 o'clock at night when they're home after traveling all day. It's just a huge win, again, on that user adoption piece, which is just so critical when you're choosing CRM. Okay, where are we at now? Oh, then of course, we want to talk a little bit about journey mapping, right? Consistency with your data. And so Sugar has the customer journey capabilities. Salesforce has the ribbon bar. They both have the ability to display a process that the users can follow. It keeps, again, your data very consistent. It helps with new user adoption as new users start to use the system. Kind of brings everybody onto the same page, but also allows you to analyze the data in a succinct way, right? So tracking a lead to qualified opportunity or tracking an opportunity process, you're going to find that Sugar and Salesforce are kind of like an even match in the way that they handle that, right? It's activity and process tracking and visualization so you can understand where you are. For your complex use cases, right? You're onboarding a new customer and the customer needs to be sent to the credit department and credit's got to be done, and then that's got accepted and that goes back to the salesman and notifies the salesman. This is, again, another great example where journey mapping can be extremely effective with a little bit of automation so that people are just being dinged and we're not emailing back and forth. Where are we with the credit check? Where are we with the contract signing? It's all sitting in a system that's communicating to other users about where we are with the process. So you create templates in your system, fully customizable. And again, Sugar does this just as well as Salesforce does. I think, Dennis, we'd probably say this is an even match. You automate some of those steps to communicate without having to pick up the phone or write something down on a Post-it note, God forbid. And we basically have a consistent process within our system that now that the users and the team can follow, which means really good analytics. Yeah. Okay. And speaking of analytics, Sugar CRM is the only CX platform with just a cutting edge stream database that records every record change in that customer journey process that we showed before, right? Or any processes that you adopt into it. Dennis is going to dive deeper into this, but he's going to show you some Discover capabilities, which is going to be able to track your trends, track basic reporting as well, but tracking trends. And again, the idea behind your reporting requirements is if you've ever, or an executive team member has ever struggled or waited for 4 or 6 hours to get some data that they've requested, your CRM should be able to resolve that question and present that data in as near as real time as possible. I think Dennis is going to dive into that a bit and really show those types of insights so that you can kind of, again, steer your ship, find the blue ocean, and then run that blue ocean with your business and hit your KPI goals. So continuous analysis.
Yeah, inside of that kind of that conversation, Garrett, and Sarah, is really like time awareness of the data. Like most CRMs on the market, and you can tell by these slides, it's a copycat league, right? There's a lot of functionality that we share across all these platforms, some better than others. But time awareness of data is key. And what I mean by that is what happens not what does it look like today, what happened to get me to where I am today, what deals have pushed out, what opportunities have increased in value, what opportunities have decreased in value. And most all CRMs on the marketplace can run some type of report to tell you what your pipeline looks like right now. But if over the weekend one of your reps took a large opportunity and pushed it out a quarter, and your pipeline dropped by X percentage points, and your CEO calls you and says, what happened? How quickly can you cover for that? How do you see who reps are moving age data out into future quarters? We'll talk a little bit of that when we get into the demo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be a huge differentiator for anybody who's seen Salesforce in its current state compared to what Sugar can do with its reporting options. So, yeah, very nice. Okay, Sarah, next slide, please. And then let's just talk about price point. Okay, so Salesforce has several different flavors, and you can start slow in that product with the professional edition at 75. What I typically say agnostically here is that if you're comparing Salesforce Enterprise Edition with Sugar, you would compare Sugar Premier to Sugar Salesforce Enterprise Edition. And that's probably the equal on footing ground. And you'll see that Sugar comes in at a nicer price point than Salesforce does. Okay, let's move on and show you some fun things. Are there any questions in the chat we should answer at this point, Sarah? Anything come up yet?
Let me take a look. Nope, nothing yet. But good reminder to people, feel free as questions are coming to you to drop them right into that question box and we will address them.
All right, just give me one moment here. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen. You should be looking at my Outlook window.
Yes.
Thank you, team. Let me shrink up our head so I'm not distracted by my big head talking while I'm doing my demo here. Excellent. So 2 key concepts we talk about when we talk about Sugar and adoption and actually getting users to use it. The first primary thing you'll hear me say quite a bit is work where you work. The second you'll hear me say is one tab to success. I drill that through to my teams and anybody I speak to really about user adoption is if you are a Salesforce user or a HubSpot user or any of the competitive products, you'll notice at the end of the day or at some point you'll have 500 tabs open at the top of your screen. And you're constantly swiveling from room to room. You might even have the same account open several times because it was easier just to go search for it again as opposed to just stay inside of one tab and one focused view. I start every presentation I do on the Sugar stack inside of Outlook. Reason being, I sell, support, and work with Sugar all day, every day. I still spend about 75% of a day in my Outlook window. And so you notice our Sugar Connect plugin here, which is surfacing the associated contact record anytime I land on a particular contact. So inside of here, anything I can do in Sugar, I can do directly from within my window. If I wanted to create a call, meeting note, or an activity, see what open opportunities are there. And so inside of any window, you can see I have multiple contacts inside of a string. I can drop down that window and change the different records I wanted to see inside of my Connect window at the same time. So instead of copying, pasting, and swiveling back and forth from between Outlook, often as the VP of Sales, I'm brought into conversations by email. Dennis, I'd like you to speak to this person, or this particular prospect would like to connect with you. And being able to immediately look at their contact, understand who it is from my team that's working with them, any additional data that I might have there. But you'll notice in our newest model of Connect, we now have access to our hint window at the same time. And so what Hint does is it's a data service that's out pulling over 100 different social sources to pull back any additional information I might have. In this case, a nice headshot. I get an idea of the person I'm speaking to. Any type of education information they have, perhaps Facebook information on those people, on the company. If you notice this particular cloud, it means that data exists inside of Hint that does not exist inside of CRM. So I can just update my associated contact record by clicking that particular window. We talk about being of a service to a user and not requiring people to be data entry clerks. Most salespeople, if they're on your team for any good amount of time, they know how to sell and they know what they're doing day in, day out. And the last thing we want to do is make them type in the call notes or update particular data entries or creating contacts with copy and paste, just allow me to push that information directly into CRM and continue without on my day. In addition to that, do I have any newswire service, recent things that I may want to discuss with them to get them on the phone? We talk about doing research or prep time before any initial call. Usually it's 10 to 15 minutes, LinkedIn, different social sources, simple Google searches to find out who it is, who the company is, what they do. Being able to do that all inside of my Outlook window before a meeting, before even sending an email to somebody to say, hey, where did this person go to school? Do I have anybody else want to purchase at this time? Can I name drop a particular contact or a professor to kind of intimate contact that particular person without just being another vendor? And so being able to do all that directly from within my Outlook window really ties it back to me. And again, these are real life use cases, right? We're in my live inbox today. So if I were to land on somebody who wasn't a contact yet in Sugar, so if somebody invited me to a meeting and yet it doesn't exist inside of my CRM instance as a CRM vendor, big no-no. But for my reps and my team, they can simply add that person as a contact, add that as a lead directly from within that particular view set without having to toggle back and forth to their Sugar instance. So as I switch contacts and Sugar goes out and gets that associated contact, just some additional functionality there as well. The option to auto archive any information that's sent for this. So anytime I send an outgoing email, link that email to that particular person. I might do that for time if I'm in a particular support session or negotiation session where I want every email logged back to my Sugar window. But to be able to then edit and work directly in here, again, enable that auto archiving, or just go view that record in Sugar. Maybe check out their LinkedIn profile in there. Do I have any connections? That simple navigation view of keeping me directly inside of Outlook, inside of one tab, while I'm working and interacting with that information directly from Sugar, really saves me not only time, but it's of value to me. And when things are of value to me, I will do them. When things cost me time, I'm going to try to get around it as best I can. So really enabling your users and empowering them to access the data that's in Sugar, not making me feel like I'm going back and forth between 3 applications to get ready for a meeting. Tying those 2 together in one clean interface really allows me to kind of work where I work. There's a ton more functionality in here that we can discuss at a later time. Things like templates and scheduling emails to go at a different time, publishing your calendar to allow people to book time slots with you. If you ever receive an email from me, you'll see a little link there where I publish Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, because my Mondays and Fridays are sacred. But inside of that, again, work where you work, one tab, give me access to what I need to do my job, give me access to the history to support customers or prospects so I can see who's working on what, maybe all coalesced emails together in one spot so I can see kind of the tempo of the conversation before I get involved without any heavy lifting from me directly from within Outlook. So from there, I'll take us into a demo system and we'll go through some navigation changes both in the UI of Sugar, but really just kind of what I like to call my dashboard presentation. Let me get rid of this little Zoom window. From any particular use case, whether you're a sales leader, a customer service rep, an account executive, you're going to have what your business looks like throughout any individual day. Here am I assigned to accounts that I need to contact for some reason. Here is current pipeline for my team. And going back to that work where you work mentality, inside of Sugar, these are just a series of reports. So as you hone the instance to kind of how it is that you're interacting with the application, what is it that you need to see? What is it that you need to do? And so for some simple examples today, I've called up kind of sales pipeline, perhaps maybe pipeline by month, include and exclude, the concept of being able to maintain your pipeline to quota inside of Sugar. Perhaps I want that broken up by rep and the sales stage. If I'm speaking to Chris, let me see that individual information. And so inside of that, it's also ran, right? Every CRM, for the most part, has the ability to create some dashboards to show you the data. Where Sugar is uniquely different is we allow you to work inside of these particular dashboards. And what I mean by that is if I were working on perhaps all the deals that I had in prospecting, by drilling down into that section of prospecting deals, I'm now presented with the results of that report, not the list views, right, of the individual modules. If you're familiar with most CRM applications, this is actually the report data. And so I can see the account name, perhaps the opportunity name, the associated revenue line items associated to it. So here, if I wanted to preview into the account, I'm now looking at that particular account level detail. And I can do and create associated actions. What do I mean by that? If I'm looking at the account and I wanted to say create a call or leave a voicemail, these are what we call action buttons inside of Sugar, completely configurations. These are not customizations, no code, drag and drop. So directly from within my account view now, if I wanted to log a call to the account, you'll notice because I was on the account record, it's brought that up and it's going to link that particular call to that account space. In legacy CRMs and most of our competitors, you're doing a lot of click through. You're searching for OTC, open a tab. You're opening up the call window, open a tab. You're looking for a contact, you've opened a tab. Inside of Sugar, we're able to push directly in, perhaps to the opportunity. You notice my buttons or action items change based on the workspace that I'm in. If I wanted to edit this particular opportunity and say, I'm going to change this from, say, prospecting, to maybe I'll move it to ID decision makers. When I come across and hit save, you notice that this record here goes away because it no longer exists. And now if I come down to my ID decision makers window, that first entry in that list view is going to be that OTS view set that I have. And so very easily, as a user sits down and begins to understand how they navigate through the UI of Sugar, they're interacting with the data. And it's a key differentiator between us and our competitors. We're not users, right? Salesforce has users. You are using the system. You are going to run a report. Then you're going to work with that data subset. And very rarely is that data being surfaced to you at the time you need to interact with it. So whether it's pipeline by stage for a rep, show Chris all the deals he has at a decision-making standpoint, giving him the ability to work through those, create functions, calls, update notes associated to it, all from within one view, very easily allows that user. And we like to think of this as kind of a pilot who flies at night. They don't need a windshield, right? Once they're instrument trained and they're able to work directly inside of their instruments, they can fly directly off of that. And so when we work with users as far as augmenting or configuring the instance so that users can just sit down and understand what it is. Here are the accounts I need to call today for whatever reason. I haven't spoken to them in X number of days. Maybe they have an opportunity that's coming up in Y number of days. Perhaps there's a sales stage that hasn't been updated for some time, but we're pushing that information to the user. We're not requiring them to run reports. And as you can imagine, inside of any dashboard, we have a tremendous amount of no limit to the number of dashboards you could have. Interesting inside of those configurations is you'll see across the top here, runtime filters for the entire dashlet set. So if you've been a HubSpot user, if you've been a Salesforce user or a Microsoft user, you're very familiar with creating a report and then cloning it 15 times for each one of your reps. And when you're trying to get a view set, maybe you can see everybody, but then when you just want to share something with Chris or Max, you need to go run another report to get that data or to create a snapshot window there. A couple of ways in which we can handle that. One is the ability to change our runtime filters directly from within the report. So here are the parameters that we use to create that report. And if I wanted to change that, I could just remove the users that I was looking for, right? So if I wanted to say just Chris in that particular window, I could go ahead and run that particular version of that, right? So inside of that, run that version of that particular report. So now when I apply that, I'm just looking at Chris's data. If at any point in time within that, I wanted to say, you know what, reset it back to the original configuration, I can reset it back. From an adoption standpoint, from a use case for an individual, as a sales leader that runs his entire sales organization out of Sugar, this saves me a tremendous amount of time. It also reduces the number of reports that I have for confusion and the number of dashboards that I need. Interesting new functionality for us is the ability to put a runtime filter in the header of an entire dashboard. So if I wanted to say, here are my two parameters that all of these reports share, in this case, rep name and time period. If I wanted to override that now and say, you know what, I just want to see Chris's data across all of these charts. every one of my dashboards will reset and just show me Chris has no quotes created. I'm working with only Chris's data here, right? Across pipeline by month, my sales leaderboard. So really simple ways for users to interact with Sugar, but actually change the way in which they work inside of their CRM. Again, all of these things being no code configurations that basic users can do. I think one of the things when we speak to and we compete with, all the leaders, we often ask them to go to the company's website and look who they're hiring. And you'll often see several developers or programmers on their site to help them get their CRM off the ground. These being just reports, as soon as you learn how to create one, you could put them on a dashboard for a user to have, or if you allow your users to create their own, they can have them as well. So starting with a list of things that they may need to work with, as the user progresses, they'll get further and further and hone the instance so that is of value to them, as opposed to something that I just go update so that my manager knows what my pipeline looks like next month. That's not very useful to the rep. The rep knows what their pipeline is. They know what deals they're working on. What's useful is getting the detail around that hint information, any associated account information about what's going on news-wise to drive value into the conversation, to be of value to that prospect, not spending time typing in my data or have 50 tabs open at the top of my screen.
And Dennis, I would add, there's not a lot of CRMs at all, none that I can think of off the top of my head that are focused on this type of data approach. They're simply not. And so I've sat in on CRM demos, and you could just start counting the clicks, right? Just to get to some related data against an account, maybe a purchase or an opportunity, could take a user 6 clicks to get to. And that's all well and good in a demo presentation, but think about that every day, 6 months from now. The users get tired of that type of behavior. They need the data at their fingertips.
And we'll often say, if it takes the presenter 6 clicks to do something in a demo, how long is it going to take your users to do it? Like, it needs to be intuitive. It has to be of value if you're going to get that return on your investment. A couple of additional ways we show that is we talked about the preview into a workspace, and more you'll see Sugar go down this path. Some really exciting things coming out in the next couple of months in releases. But it all started with what we call with a focus drawer. And so here I am in another dashboard, perhaps a home dashboard for a user. We talk about surfacing information to them, right? Here are my at-risk accounts. And we can define in Sugar what is an at-risk account. Maybe it's an opportunity that's gone over date. Maybe it's a renewal that's coming that hasn't been placed yet. That's entirely up to you. Maybe it's just the days since last touched, right? Here are accounts that you're responsible for that you haven't touched in over 60 days. It all happens. We get the blinders on and we're working with hot prospects and we forget about those people that got us there in previous quarters. So having a simple dashboard of like my accounts not contacted in over 60 days allows me then to say, you know what, let me go ahead and open up what we'll call a focus drawer. And inside of my focus drawer now, a unique view into the account, kind of what timeline, and we'll see this come across, when that last touch date was, so why I'm seeing it's 91 days. You also notice now I have the view into what contacts I have at that account, and I can continue to go down that path to walk into a contact, and you'll see at the top here, I have that breadcrumb of navigation is where it got me, keeping me inside of my dashboard. So as I have my accounts of over X number of days that I want to call or I need to work with, the action of working with that record should answer that particular use case, right? So in here, when I come across and say, all right, I'm going to go ahead and log a call. Perhaps I'm using my click to dial. Maybe it's an email. However you define what that contact is, I'm going to go ahead and log a call to this particular account. Bring up my account window. It is obviously a configurable call. Any information that you wanted to store on that record, our form set to held by default. Come across and hit save. In the background now, we have our BPM on that. We've automatically updated our days since last touch to 0. And now when I come back to the main view of my dashboard, that particular account is no longer in my list view because we've touched that particular record. Very low use case, I understand, but impactful. let me know who I need to speak with at the time I need to speak with them, whether it's days since last touch or a case that came in yesterday or a renewal that's coming up in 90 days. Whatever those business processes is, we can surface that information to the user. So we're not necessarily using reports. We're not necessarily asking users to go run Boolean searches or say, okay, show me accounts assigned to me with an expiration date of over X number of days. They're simply logged into a console view of Sugar, interact with those particular records that by way of definition were directed to them, whether they were at-risk accounts, accounts not contacted, new leads that came into your particular territory, and allow them to work where they work. So if I come into this focus drawer, Kathleen, I see a new lead come in, I might want to just come right to my edit and say it's in process, maybe schedule a call for myself later in the day or do something, but immediately my metric is met. That account no longer meets the criteria of new. And when I come back to my dashboard view, Kathleen Burns is no longer a lead for me to follow up on. She's then moved into a subsequent view. So as you dynamically interact with the application, maybe the next person in line is notified that something takes place. Maybe this new lead now surfaces for your BDR that you've qualified it and you want them to work with. But those are all kind of the nuts and bolts of an implementation. The core functionality of being able just to work where you work inside of one tab from one dashboard is inherently unique to Sugar. And a couple more examples as we move on. Go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is, I use focus drawer capabilities. I never leave my home screen when I'm working through my opportunities and my new leads. And the reason why I don't is because I've created little list views like this that show me the next people in order to call. And if you click on the focus drawer for Jennifer Robertson, Dennis, just to show them a small little thing like those arrow buttons on the left-hand side. I'll call Jennifer Robertson, I'll hit the down arrow, and I'll move left-hand side underneath the X next to her name, Dennis, to the left.
To the left here? Oh, then just walk to the next record.
I'll make my note, I'll hit the down arrow, I'll call Pamela, I'll make my note, I'll hit the down arrow. I never leave the focus drawer, I go right down the line. And this has improved my contact call rates. I'm up probably 40% in how many calls I can make in a day by that little feature alone. Very powerful.
Yeah, if you look on the right hand side, we have some more examples. There's some idea of timeline and the nature of what's going on with that. Perhaps if you're using Sugar Market, seeing what they interacted with from an event perspective, what their score is, any activity that they've had or shared with the marketing team, really consolidated view. Of course, at any time, we can just say, let's go to this record and see it in full view. But for experienced users, when you sit a brand new user down who's never worked with Sugar before, and you tell them, we need you to update your pipeline, and they realize that it's a click, update, drag, go to the next line, you're getting a lot more data from your team. And really, that's when we start pulling into the time awareness. So I'm going to go into one more example of being able to use that from a UI perspective in my account list view. So inside of Sugar, again, my account list view, my columns being able to sort. Nice new position is to be able to anchor a particular column in our view set. It's a long time coming. I'm very happy that it's there so that I can leave kind of that primary key of account there while I scroll to the right. While anchoring that first column position, I can change what that column position is if I'd like. But again, using that preview to drill in this case, for a particular account and maybe get an idea of timeline. But instead of everything that's happened inside a timeline, maybe I only want to see emails, right? I only want to see kind of email back and forth. I know this is an email heavy client, and be able to look at that data directly from within my timeline. So this gives me the ability to toggle through all information, maybe calls that have come from my team. So in legacy systems, you would have gone to the record, open a subpanel, preview, and saw a bunch of records. Here I'm surfacing all attack activity data inside of my timeline, in this case, both past and future, on what's going on with that account. So if I'm an account manager and I want to see, hey, has somebody else spoken to them? Has a case come in? Any of that information is visible directly to me here. And once again, I have full access to update that data directly across. Inside of that, again, go to my contacts. If I wanted to pick on Angela, I can just go to that contact record, or I can use that navigation view to say, show me in a forecast, excuse me, in my focus panel, walk into that particular record as well. And now I'm dealing with the timeline information specific to that particular contact. So being able to isolate that data at the lowest level, and I'm surprised today no HubSpot competes on the phone. We've seen quite a bit of them of late. Seeing on a contact level the individual information, but then being to roll up all that information to an account level, key differentiator from Sugar, and happens out of the box, right? So as we're completing that information at the contact level, anybody who has access to the account with the security and the role access to do so has the ability to see it on the account level. Last item there is just the ability to use the UI to drive navigation. So here I had a simple example of take all my accounts and just group them by industry. This might be customer versus prospect, active customer versus previous customer, however it is that you want to classify the data, just a simple report to do so. Inside of that, then, if I said, okay, I'm going to go grab all my hospitality accounts or hospitality, here's that list view of records. I now can toggle that list view from the report-centric view to the actual workspace view. And what that allows me to do is things like double click to edit, select multiple records if I wanted to say add them to a target list or put them in some type of a mail campaign for my group. So what used to be complex Boolean filters to say these type of records in this region, in this zip code, I now can simply use any report that I've created as a user as my primary UI tool. And so very easy for users to click and grab, supported inside of mobile as well, so that I can see that data quickly and work with that data in the instance. In addition to that, inside of our Premier, some additional ancillary data. If I'm going to visit Northwest Capital, what other accounts should I see while I'm there? Right. So if I wanted to say, show me accounts within 5 miles, here is that list view. If I wanted to grab those or extend some type of filter, show me my at-risk accounts, show me ones I haven't visited in over 60 days. So I can constrain that view. If I'm taking the time to go visit a particular customer, who else in that region shall I see? And maybe I want to then just take those and drop them on a map, right? Put them on a map, get directions in a particular route, but allow me to interact with that data. And this, again, inside of one tab of being value to, in this case, the rep. If somebody's looking for a reference for a particular account, maybe I want to find one that's local. Maybe they have the same dialect. Maybe they can share the same misery about a commute. Hopefully we get back to that. But the ability to kind of be of value to an end user and allow them to get additional information. When you think about things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, God forbid, TikTok with my kids, it's ask for a little, get a lot. You train the system, you train YouTube on what you're interested in. And the next time you log in, that information is pushed to you. Even if you don't subscribe to that channel, if you have the rights to see it, that information is coming to you. And when we work with companies about user adoption and allowing people to interact with the platform as opposed to be users, being able to hone the instance to move the information in front of their eyes when it's necessary that they see it is really one of the key differentiators of the Sugar CRM platform. I appreciate everybody taking the time today to take a look at that. Obviously, there's a lot more to see. It actually went a little bit longer than I thought. But at any time, obviously, you have experts in the brain cell team, and I'm happy to come along with any presentation that I'm asked to. So I appreciate you some time taking a look at Sugar today, and hopefully I'll take this conversation a little bit deeper at a future time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
A lot going on there. So thank you, Dennis. A lot of time in a small amount of time there. So wonderful.
Before I take back the screen, we did have a question come in and we're moving into our audience Q&A. But
Sure.
the question was, how do you keep track of sales targets by account manager, geo, product?
So there's a couple of different ways to do it. Mostly inside of, if you look at, in this particular example, we have kind of year orders quarter over quarter for a particular customer. We do have the ability to set goals inside of our forecast module. So if you wanted to set a goal to a particular product or a particular person, you certainly could. And then we're using our commit and upside cycles inside of our forecast window to track that. Not sure where the question came from, Sarah, but if you'd like to stick a a note next to it, I'm happy to do a one-off on that presentation as well. But certainly it is possible.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. I'm just going to show my screen. So, yep, we are moving into the audience Q&A. I'll continue to go a couple additional questions. And as others have questions, please feel free to drop them into the question box. But how easy is it to customize each of these platforms? So we can start with Sugar and talk about Salesforce as well when we're thinking about different customizations.
Sure.
Yeah, so from a Sugar perspective, it's infinitely easy to create fields, forms, and layouts. From a just because you can, should you, right? Like, should you have 40 fields on your account screen? Probably not. But from a configuration standpoint, we always ask why. And so why is it that you're doing this? If it's a one-off, you probably shouldn't be doing it inside of your CRM. If it's something that's of value to your end users, go ahead and do it. I would love to do head-to-head Salesforce to Sugar. You go create 6 fields and put them on a form and I'll do it, because I bet you we could beat them by about 6-fold. The complexity between the admin UI and Salesforce and the Sugar UI is immense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We would classify both CRMs as point and click configurability, meaning you're clicking and dragging into the layout interface and things like that. But the UX in Sugar definitely wins the day as far as speed and time to go live, because of additional loading times and other reasons in the Apex platform that just require more patience and more click and drag to actually configure those layouts properly. I think Sugar wins the day on that.
Great. The next question that just came in, how easy is it to migrate data, attachments, etc., from, well, this Salesforce to Sugar?
Got it.
Easy is a very sales word. So, it's we have a utility that we have internally. It's called S-Transit, that we specifically designed to copy Salesforce data directly into Sugar using Salesforce's API. So we have a point and click move method. I know BrainCell's done a ton of Salesforce conversions as well. Depending on how nested those documents are, the complexity can increase. But certainly it's there. It's something that we do quite a bit. Probably about 60% of the deals we closed last quarter were Salesforce conversions.
Yeah. So we help you set up a mapping. These fields in your current system, this is where they're going to fit into Sugar. Configure Sugar to store that data, and then we push the button and the data translates. And I say that as an account executive, not actually as an engineer, because
I'm sure your engineer would roll his eyes if he just heard your description of it. I think specifically they were talking about attached documents, which can be heady, especially if they're inside of emails. But there are tools of the trade to get it done.
that is correct.
Great. And then the final question is, do either of these platforms include a marketing automation integration?
Both Salesforce and Sugar have their own. Salesforce has Pardot or Pardot, depending on what country you're in. And Sugar, we have our Sugar Market offering, which is wholly owned by Sugar and directly integrated to the platform.
Great. Okay, that is it for questions. So we can move to wrap up. A kind of thank you for attending offer from us here at BrainCell. For those of you who have attended today, we are offering a CRM optimization audit or a sales process audit. So basically, it would be a 45-minute interactive discussion with our team here to look at what is your current technology, what are your current processes around sales and sales management, identify opportunities or gaps where you can leverage automation and data. And then we would document the actionable next steps and recommendations for you to take. And then,
it's
yep,
everything, right? We've been talking about a great tool here with Sugar CRM, but planning is everything. And happy to definitely jump on additional calls and talk about your specific use case and how CRM could be a big win for your organization.
Great. So that concludes our presentation for today. So I want to thank you, Garrett, and you, Dennis, for participating, and thank you to everyone who joined us. We hope this was content that was valuable to you and helped just expand your knowledge a little bit as you're looking at other CRM options.
Awesome.
Sarah, you
Thanks,
look
Sarah. Thank you, Garrett.
recording as
Thank
well,
you.
Sarah.
Yes. Oh, that's right. And the recording. Yes. Thank you for the reminder, Garrett. You'll see that in your inbox likely tomorrow morning, the recording as well as the slide deck.
Share the recording, pass it around. Happy to talk again.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
Dennis.
you. Have a great rest of your week.
Be well,
Bye-bye.
guys. Appreciate you.
Take care.